Hey everyone, I hope you are all doing well. So let's continue with this master study series with another from Charles Warren Eaton. This one's called Bruges Moonlight. It's really a dark, moody painting with some wonderful silhouettes and some hot spots of illumination. This really adds to the idea of adding dark to show light, and we'll talk about that. This will be more of a single point perspective, and I'll demonstrate what that looks like when I sketch this out. Thanks to everyone who's been supporting this channel. I'll put a link to my Teespring store as well as other contribution options in the description below. Or you can use this QR code here. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and click that notification bell so that you'll be alerted to new videos. And please share this video with someone who you think might learn from these fundamentals. I'm Kendall Stump, and welcome to the Stump Project. All right, guys, let's jump into this. This is a repurposed canvas, so you can probably see a shadow of something that's on underneath it here. I sanded it down and I put a coat of titanium white on the top. It was a little last minute thing, just prepping a canvas. I'd forgotten about it. So the paint's not quite dry. You can touch this, you can just see a little bit of my finger. Not really what you want. You really want this to be dry, so just keep that in mind. And we're going to work with it today, just kind of see what's going on. Okay, so the painting that we're doing today is from Charles Warren Eaton, Bruges Moonlight. So this painting, it's almost square, but my canvas is obviously rectangular landscape. And his is square, more portrait. So I'm just taking the creative liberties to do it landscape, although I could change it up and do it portrait if I wanted to. But I think that there's enough information in the painting itself that will allow us to just make it up as we go. So let's talk about perspective. So perspective is the vanishing point, or is the point at which things look like they get smaller and kind of go away down into nothingness. So this painting is done in one point perspective, meaning there is one vanishing point. The vanishing point is always going to be on the horizon. So let's assume that it's right here. So all things, whether it's clouds or trees or whatever, will emanate from this vanishing point. All the way around, all the way across, wherever it is. All roads lead to Rome. So this is the vanishing point, and it's always on the horizon, like I said. So let's sketch in a little bit using what we know of the vanishing point. We know that he's got trees. So if you look at a tree, for example, let me back up. One point perspective. All horizontal lines are going to remain horizontal throughout. All vertical lines are going to remain vertical throughout. The only lines that you see are depth lines. So, for example, if he has a tree, we'll block it in as simple shapes. Think of these things as shapes. It's above the horizon, you can see under it. So you can pretend to see this tree here. And you see this edge of the tree, bunch leaves are going to point to the horizon. This edge of the tree bunch is going to point to the horizon. Horizontal lines like this. And then the trunk itself will just come down. It's however organically it goes down. Let's do that with some more. Like there's another tree that's like right here. Maybe it comes down a little bit. And then you would just point to that horizon, that points to that horizon. So just so you get an idea, we'll just go ahead and shade those in. So that's like the bottoms of the treetops. Use this technique to build shapes. You see, and we can put another one way over here if we wanted to, and then just imagine off canvas. It's going to clear over there, and the same with this. Well, this is pretend that there's another one clear over there, way up in the distance. And then he's got the house, the building structure. It's all going to be just flat shapes, so it's kind of like that. Roof is like here, and like that, and all this is just pretty much silhouette. Landscape through here, and then this is water, and then he's going to have a bunch of foliage through here. You can see my paint's a little bit wet still, but my white paint, but that's okay, you get the idea. So you can see how 1 point perspective, just to lay out these trees, and just so that you have even a better understanding or clear understanding. You have the tree trunks that are kind of coming down, however they're going to come down. So I'm going to go ahead and tone my canvas. I just want to give you that demonstration of perspective. Like I said, my canvas is my white on my canvas is still just a little bit wetter than I would want it to be. So we're probably going to mix some of this burnt sienna up into that white, so we'll deal with that, I guess, as it happens. Obviously, when you do this, you would really want that primer coat to be dry. So to thin out this burnt sienna, I'm mixing it with odorless mineral spirits and linseed oil. So that's my main thinning medium. I'm also using some liquid, which is this stuff right here. This will make the drying time of your paint a lot shorter. It speeds it up. So if you're like me and you have a low level of patience, then this will be something that you are interested in for sure. Now don't worry about putting this on too thick. We're going to wipe a lot of this off anyway, because we just want to tone the canvas. I'm not trying to get this overly saturated. And the reason why I'm toning the canvas, number one, is to get rid of the white. White can, for any artist, white can be a severe roadblock or a distraction to get yourself started. So we're toning this up. And then the second reason why I do this is because you can call it underpainting if you like. This paint is going to mix in with the paint that you put on the canvas, and it's going to give everything an overall unified hue. So it's going to marry your colors. It's going to make them be a little bit more homogeneous. Because this is a toneless painting, I don't rinse out my brushes very often. I will wipe them off. Let's take a paper towel and just wipe off the bristles, get a lot of that paint right out of there. I don't mind, unless I'm working with white, I want something that's a pure, bright color, something like that, then I will either take care to really clean out my brushes or use a different brush altogether. It adds to the tone or the color temperature if you don't do that. You just leave a residue on your brush. I am just going to take the paper towel and just take some of this off. If you're underpainting, it should be dry. Your white coat should be dry. Your primer coat should be dry. You wouldn't have a problem with this. I'm going a little bit lighter because the linseed oil, odorless mineral spirits that I put on here is going to loosen the titanium white that I put on the canvas, and more than likely will probably take it off. So I don't want that to happen. I don't want to reveal the underpainting or the painting underneath that I'm trying to cover up. So I'm just going lightly across this. Now this is a fairly dark painting, so I'm not worried too much about it. What I want is just the tone and the color, and that's just going to help the overall aesthetic of the painting. The burnt sienna that I have on the canvas should mix with this green and gray it down just a little bit. The red in the burnt sienna is a complementary color to green. So you mix complementary colors and you get, and it reduces its saturation. Now the brush that I'm using, it's just an Artist Loft brush. I like using these brushes. It's a natural bristle brush, but the bristles just add so much texture and everything to our landscapes. I really enjoy using them. Now I'm going a little bit darker, a little bit heavier on the phthalo green towards the outside or the edges, and then as we get down to the horizon, I'm going a little bit darker, and there's going to be a reason for that. There's going to be a moon like right up in here, and we want to be able to really show the brightness of that moon. So now we'll start lightening it up. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to the phthalo yellow green, and we'll start bringing this in. Again, the burnt sienna should help dull this down. I don't want this to be so saturated. And don't worry too much about the brush strokes at this point either. Once you get everything on, then we can go back through and smooth out these brush strokes. This is a sky, and if you don't want to smooth out the brush strokes, you don't have to. Charles Warren Eaton, if you look at this painting, it's very rough. So where this is a master study, we're really just kind of looking at examining how it was built. We're looking at the colors that were used, maybe why those colors were chosen and how they work together. But I encourage you to take some artistic license according to your own style. I'm not looking to copy these paintings, I'm studying them. And then we'll just go into a little bit more of the yellow we're not rinsing off, not cleaning off the brush, not at all. And we're just going to continue to lighten this up by making like little X marks, little X strokes, raising the value. Remember, value is the scale which you would measure color from on a scale from white to black. The more white that's added, the brighter the color it gets, the higher in value it is. The more black that's added, the lower in value it gets, the darker it is. This is a natural bristle 1-inch brush from Bob Ross's collection. I really like how soft and supple the bristles are. It's really, really nice for blending. So I'm just going to take this brush and I'm just softly, just using the top side of the bristles right here. I'm not using the tip right here. I'm using the top side, and just lightly, just so lightly. I want to remove some of these brush strokes. I want to blend some of this. Add a little light so I can see. Hope I'm not adding too much of a glare for you guys. A little bit of a hair right there. A different brush. This is just a flat. It's an extra long flat actually, from the Eclipse series from Rosemary & Co. This right here. Number 6, Rosemary & Co. And I know I'm going to go right into this area right here. This is where the moon is going to be. One of the things that you want to try to do is divide your canvas up into thirds. Usually the horizon is going to be on one of the thirds. And in this case, Charles Warren Eaton did that. He put his horizon on one of the thirds. But because the proportions of his painting are off a little bit, I mean the canvas are off a little bit, the moon that he has is more towards the center. So that's kind of what we're going to do. Otherwise I would probably put it more towards the third, which would be over here, but in his case it's right over in here. So be careful when you're adding white. Make one stroke. One stroke and wipe off your brush, because as soon as you get that color contaminated, that's it. You'll ruin the whole thing. Well, when I say ruin, I mean you'll contaminate your white. You can see how I started adding a little bit of a lighter color here, and as I went around, it got darker and darker because that paint is just picking it up. But that's okay. I'm just trying to add a little bit of a glow. A little bit more of a glow around that moon. It's a little too white, so I just dabbed it down just a little bit with some of that yellow and white I put in there, just to dilute it just a little. Actually, I'm going to use some burnt umber, raw umber. I'm going to use some raw umber. I'm going to block in using this rough brush. I'm going to block in where those trees are going to be, and we're going to mix a black that we're going to use to go on top of this. But if you try to put dark on top of a lighter color, lighter value, you're going to muddy the color. So I'm putting a little bit of dark down now, knowing that if this gets muddied, that's not that big of a deal. So I'm going to go over it again. What's nice about these brushes, because I said they're natural brushes, when they're old, if you just smash them against the canvas, you'll see that the edges of them are just so organic. And it really gives you that foliage that you would be looking for in this type of thing. Trying to follow the tree structure, how the trees are built in his painting. And again, my proportion, my canvas aspect ratio is different from the painting, the actual painting. So I have to take certain liberties to kind of fill my canvas and make it look like it makes sense. I mean, pay attention to the play and value on this. I mean, look at the lighter sky and then the light source right behind it, and what that does to the subject. In this case, it's the trees, and it'll be the house that's down below. It darkens them up. So pay attention to how light acts and treats things like this. Having a background in 3D arts, and that's one of the things that you learn as you develop shaders and textures and things like that, is that light plays an absolute effect on what you're trying to build, what you're trying to visually create. You may want something to be blue, but if it's in an environment that is yellow, the balanced light's going to cause that to take on potentially a green hue. Pay attention to how light is going to affect these things. I think I said it before in the past. You need to paint what you see, not what you think you know. Don't look at something that you know is white and say, "Oh, I'm just going to paint that white." Well, is it? Is it white? Look at it. Really, really look at it. Like, you might look at that moon and you think, "Well, it's moon. It's bright. It's. I know that the moon is white. It's up there in the sky. I see it every night, and it's always portrayed as white." Yeah, but is it? The background. I'm using this raw umber, and I'm dipping into the phthalo green to put in this far away patch, and I may even use some of the phthalo yellow green too, just to lighten it up just a little bit. And we know this comes in and it dips towards the middle of the canvas, and it's going to get a little bit lighter because we're getting closer to the light source. This is where these brushes shine, because I want to push up right there along the tree line and let those bristles create that vegetation, those trees that are far, far away. And it'll push them up and create such an organicness that is really hard to duplicate otherwise. And then underneath that, right underneath that, there's going to be some more land. I'm going to leave a little bit of a light spot right there because there is a small highlight, and I'm just putting in a visual cue for me to remember to go in and put that in there. But that's okay. So we're going to have some shadows that are going to go on in here as we get a little bit further down. This isn't much of a highlight. This is more, I want to darken that as we get away from the edge of the painting, because I prefer to have it dark on the outside and then lighten as it comes in. There, see if that helps. Adjust my light just a little bit. Okay, so let's mix some black. Alizarin crimson, phthalo green. Experiment with your ratio. Depending on if you want a black that depending on if you want a black that leans to the green or black that leans to the red. They're both very, very strong colors, and it does not take much to get it to lean to one side or the other. The best way to test it is by taking just a little bit of titanium white and mixing it in and see what kind of gray you got. If it's a warm gray, if it's a cool gray. Does it have a red hue? Does it have a green hue? I'm having a problem with lights today. I think it's, here we go. The important thing with it, it's not a solid color. I mean it's a solid black in here. You're obviously working with vegetation. So we'll go through and dab it a little bit to kind of break up the monotony of the color. And so we'll do one tree at a time here. So show you how to do that. Just going to take a paper towel, and those of you who are painting along with me, who've been with me for a little while, are probably already grabbing your towel. Grab a paper towel. Keep in mind of the light source. Where you hit this is where you're going to take paint away and allow some of the paint underneath it to show through. And you're just dabbing and removing some paint, and you can use that to transplant it elsewhere. When you get a saturated paper towel, just go ahead and find a new place. And we put this dark on dark because we put that raw umber down, which is fine because I just want this to be subtle. And it might not even be picking up too much on the camera, but that's, believe me, it's plenty. It's plenty. Just scrubbing out, let the bristles just kind of going in different directions here. Let the bristles just create some of that organicness at the end. Let these illusions of detail just happen. The closer that you get to your light source, the more perceived darkness you're going to find, and it's just, I believe it's just an optical illusion, because the thing's not getting any brighter, the shadows aren't getting any deeper. It's just, where is it in relationship to that light source? The contrast is getting higher, which I think is what pushes the separation of shadow and dark and light. You know, like covering up maybe some lighter spots in there, because when I go back over this with the towel, it's going to help create that variety where maybe the moonlight is shining through some breaks on the other side, and it's illuminating the trees a little bit on this side for us to see. And notice too, on this side here, closer to the moon or the light source, I wasn't going clear to the edge of those tree surfaces. I was letting some of the lighter raw umber kind of soak through or come through to kind of give us an idea of that bloom or the reflection of the moon that's kind of, or the illumination of the moon that's trying to break through. As I get further away here, I'm going to go right up to the edge with that black, and I'm going to kind of eliminate what that bloom may have been, because I don't want as much contrast as I come further away from that light source. Just get a little bit on your towel, and just find a new place on your towel. And now at this point, with clear eye here, I'm not worried about showing highlights. I'm transplanting paint. No, but if I do pick up some and some highlights kind of come through, a little bit is fine. Not that big of a deal. Okay, maybe you'll find some here. Maybe you'll find some here. Just a little. Just a little bit you want to come through. You see that just like right here, just the tiniest bit. And keep it in the direction of where the light might be. The light source is important. So many people, so many artists, YouTube artists will go just say, hey, there's a light, shadow here, and maybe they don't explain why there's a shadow there, and they just leave it up to you to just kind of put shadows wherever you may want, but maybe you don't know how light works. Or maybe it's one of those things where you know that there's shadows, but you don't necessarily know why, so you're putting it wherever. I like to work from the top down in the paintings. The top will be closest to you, and then as you get to the horizon time, that's the horizon that's the furthest away, and then as you get down to the bottom, that's closest to you again. So think of it more like a wedge, kind of like this. So when you're painting things, and again, just like we talked about with the perspective, you can imagine, like, remember if the vanishing point is right here, then you can see the bottom of my hand, and you can see the top of this hand because it's below the below the horizon line. Keep that stuff in mind. Okay, so now we are going to add some of these trunks, and I'm going to take back in my flat here. I'm going to use the side of it because you see it's nice and chiseled, and I know I want it to be something like that. And you know what? Maybe this brush isn't even the best. I'm going to get a rigger brush. This is a rigger brush. I've showed you these before, so I can pick up on it. Very small. Long bristle brush, skinny. They hold a lot of paint. So that, and I'm going to thin down my paint just a little bit because a thin paint will stick to a thick paint. I'm just following the painting. Not exactly, of course, but you can twist your brush as you do this. You will add some really nice curvature, organicness to your One thing you notice is as we go across, we get closer and closer together. This to imply perspective that it's going further and further back into the distance. The highlight we were working on earlier. We brought the trees all the way down to that foreground, and we cut right in front of that highlight. I want to bring that highlight out a little bit more. So actually I'm going to use my palette knife, and it's got a little bit of a residue of that black on it, and I want it to remain dark but not too. I want it to be in contrast to the horizon. I want it to look like it's a highlight on the ground. So right through here, let the paint run off as I get closer to the edge. Remember, I want it to be a little bit darker. Keep the edge of your knife straight with the horizon line. I can go back in, and I want these trees to come down just on the bottom side of that highlight, so that highlight is going behind the trees. And I want it dark just on top of this, the black background trees. I'm just going to put like a cypress. You want it to stand out just a little bit on top of those trees to kind of give it a depth, to push those other trees back. Adding the horizon line, just increasing it just a little bit. Remember the aspect ratio of this canvas versus what Eaton was using is a little bit different. So I'm extending this a little bit. Just taking a little bit of artistic license right through here, letting these trees that are like maybe way off in the distance just kind of just be there. Just to kind of fill that up a little bit, add a little life to or organicness to the landscape, to the horizon line. Let's change brushes again. We're going to go back to my natural bristle brush with the black on it. I want a little bit more of the foliage feel that comes off of the trees here. So the vininess just kind of comes down the trees. Maybe it's just new branches that are trying to grow. Maybe it's some mistletoe infecting the trees. It's kind of growing in little bunches here and there. Okay, and then we're gonna touch up where the tree trunks kind of came up here into the trees a little bit. We'll just cover those up and start putting in. It's a little bit too dark. We'll add a little bit of the yellow, phthalo yellow as well. There, we'll put kind of the baseline of water in. It'll give us something to paint on as we put in our reflections. Before we get too far, we probably want to put in that house that's back there as well. Using the flat because it's going to give me nicer, crisper edges. House is just pretty much just a silhouette. It's one of the challenges of working on this board with long handled brushes. You really need short handled brushes. These are longs. I prefer working on longs when I'm working up on a canvas. This works nicer, but I know that this tree is in front, but I can replace that. It's not a problem. In a bit of a shoreline here. Just using the side of my brush, I'll pull down. You'll see why I'm doing this in just a little bit. And then right here, I kind of want to put in a reflection of this tree. Put a mark there. Put some dark here for that foliage there. Put some marks in here. All right, so I'm going to take my my 1-inch brush, this guy, and I want to pull down. I'm going to make some water. Again, it's a little bit challenging because I'm on a box. But you just take your brush right up to that shoreline, and you're just going to pull straight down. Wherever you want that shoreline to be, just pull straight down. Normally you work more with the side of your brush, like you're working on a canvas. Work with the side of your brush and just pull it straight down. And then you just go softly. This is softly. Just go to the side. Just let these things blur. So nice. So nice. You put it gets a nice water's edge there. Take my palette knife. And I'm just going to put a little bit of a water's edge. There's not necessarily one in this painting, but I like it. Especially if you pay attention to where the high point is for the water. I mean by high point, I mean the highlight. It's right here underneath the moon. Make that part a little bit brighter. And some of the stuff we have over here, let that just kind of fade off. right here. We'll just drag it down just a little, wiggling your palette knife as you come down. It just puts a little bit of a water line, gives some life to the stillness of the water. But you want your knife to stay straight. You don't want it to draw lines like this, like this. You want, especially with one-point perspective where you have the horizon is straight here, you want to make sure that your water lines are straight with your horizon. Otherwise it's going to look like your water is flowing off of your canvas, and that's not what you want. Okay, I'm just going to come in here and just pay attention to the painting a little bit and how it has some specific highlights, and it's based on highlights of the moon and how it's hitting. So we want to make sure we pay attention to those. A bit more of the terrain or the grassy areas. It's kind of just popping up here. Maybe we can use the flat of our palette knife, and we can just put in just scratch in some siding with our flat, and you can put like a dark window right like that, just enough to make it stand out. Put these trees back in that we're in front of. And I think I want to add a little bit more down here of, in the painting, there's a little bit more burnt sienna type coloring in there. I want to add a little bit more of that. Add a little bit. We'll put these trees back in. They just kind of got, the reflections got blended out too much. Softly, softly, softly. So I'm going to take a little bit more of this permanent yellow, and then right underneath the moon, put this in. So now look, I made one stripe, and now look, I got all that green on my brush. Make sure you wipe that off. See, one swipe, that's all you get, one swipe. Okay, so this is, I'm going to blur. I'm going to blur this a little bit. So I'm going to go up and side. Using a palette knife, we'll let it sit right on top of the paint that's there. Now I don't have to do anything more to that. I don't have to blend it or anything. I blended the under part of it. The first pass, I blended that, give it that blurry sheen, and that's all that I have to do. Put that part back in. And so you can use your same natural bristle brush and just push up against the canvas and let the bristles create that foliage. I'm starting with a burnt sienna with a little bit of that black mixed into it. Just really push your brush up against it, turn it, let the different sides of your brush, let the bristles just do the work for you. And this stuff down here, I'm just going to fill in with a little bit of dark, because like I said, when we started the painting, I had a little bit of, my titanium white wasn't necessarily completely dry, and you can see if you put dark on top of white, it gets kind of a muddy color. Well, I want to make sure that the dark that gets put on there is dark, so I want to try to fix that white a little bit. Then I'll wipe off my brush, make sure that I get whatever white that's on there off, and then we'll do this again. And I'm not trying to cover up all of that, especially along the edge, all of that burnt sienna. I want some of that to show through. It's just going to add to the depth. All right, don't cover up all of that burnt sienna, just see, you just push really hard like that, and see it just creates these tufts. And depending on your style too and your comfort level, you may decide to wait until some of this stuff dries too before you go in and start fiddling with it too much. But that's up to you, whatever your comfort level is. Okay, one last little bit of thing to do. We need to put some light in those windows. That's it. And then, like I said, you're gonna get a little bit of that green or green black on your brush. Wipe off your brush before you go back in. Put some hints of reflections in the water there, and then I think that's it. This was another canvas that needed to be repurposed, so I sanded it down and got it all prepped to go again. You can throw away this stuff if you're not happy with it, or you can use it again, recycle it, breathe new life into it. I hope you like these master studies. If you want to see something special, or if you have a question, drop me a line in the comments below. Keep studying, keep practicing, and go on and create something awesome. You can find inspiration anywhere. Don't be afraid to look. I'll see you next time.